you can listen to the simultaneous interpretation. Channel 0 is floor, Channel 1 is Cantonese, Channel 2 is English.
Joining us in this meeting to express your opinion and help us to make the best decision for Hong Kong. Please note that there is an earpiece on every booth. Please use your earpiece for simultaneous interpretation. Channel 0 is floor sound, the Cantonese is Channel 1, and for the Cantonese interpreted into English, please turn to Channel 2. I will explain the other rules after everybody put on the earpiece.
Please also note that due to time constraints, every participant will have 3 minutes to speak. When time is up, there will be a bell to remind you. Please be punctual, because if you talk longer, you are taking time away from the next participant. And also note that whatever you say here will not be protected by the Electoral Powers and Privilege Ordinance. Our Secretariat has also sent you invitations, and you would see the rules of attendance attached to the information sent to you. So there are a number of security measures, and copies have already been attached to the documents in front of you. You can also obtain some copies from our staff. So we shall begin right away. First, Madam So. Dear participants, I'm a resident of Lois Park. Today I have 3 minutes to tell officials and members of LESCO to tell us what we want, and I will talk about the odor problem from the TKO landfill. Mr. Wong, please listen carefully. You should know some basic knowledge. If you breathe in odorous air for a long time, your immunity level will drop and there will be a higher risk for having cancer. It affects the health of the residents, and the odor is not just affecting TKO, but also other places. Yau Tong Lei Mun Playground. When people leave that playground, they can also smell the odor from the landfill. Another place, Lam Tin. One night, I went there for dinner with some friends, and I took the MTR home, and I also smelled the odor. Yes, the Tuking Lane Hill may block some of the smell, but the odor is being spread by the wind. So what about people in TKO? Are you not affecting their health? And the waste transportation system will involve vehicles going by many residential buildings, and the ashes and particulates will affect people's health, and it is time for the government to wake up. Until you close down the landfill, people's health will continue to be compromised. You should not only focus on your benefits. So I would like to protest against the extension plan. You are ignoring the sufferings of the people. The town planning board has been very wrong. They should do well town planning. They should not allow accumulation of waste on the one side and then construction of tall buildings on the other side. And the two developments are only separated by one road. So the town planning board designed the new town TKO, and why did you develop the landfill at the same time? It is contradictory. For the sake of our health and our generations to follow, we object to funding support for the landfill extension plan. And LESCO members, you represent local people. You are responsible for monitoring the work of the local government. Now the government is putting the cart before the horse. It is time for you to vote against the landfill extension plan. Please save the residents. Next, Mr. Chair. Madam Chair and members, Mr. Wong. In 2013, Mr. Wong issued a public letter to TKO residents. In this letter, Mr. Wong undertook a number of improvement measures in 3 areas. First of all, you promised that beginning from June 2013, the odor will be removed. Unfortunately, even for the first undertaking, it has not been realized. So you failed to discharge your duties. On the 14th of January 2014, on Singtao Daily, beginning from June last year, the EPD set up this odor monitoring team, and at 2 of the monitoring sites, 4,410 visits have been completed, and a certain number of the visits involved odor. Just in July, odorous days were as high as 80% of the month. So your own undertaking has been shattered. The second undertaking, beginning from June, there will be street washing and garbage vehicle washing to improve the environment. I walked out to my balcony today. I wanted to see if that has been realized. It is very clear. Along Whitmore Road, if you look at some palm trees and the grass under the trees, they are covered with dust. On my cell phone, I have taken pictures around 10 a.m. today, what was happening outside, and I welcome members of the press or Mr. Wong, please stay behind and have a look at the pictures in my phone. What was taken down from this morning. So the second undertaking was not realized. Your administration is not discharging its duty. The third one, in July 2013, you undertook to provide facilities to measure PM 2.5 level along Whitmore Road. I would like to ask Mr. Wong, until today is 22nd of March already. Do you have any information that can be provided to the residents? Unfortunately, the answer is probably no. So EPD has very poor credibility. It makes undertakings about improvement measures, but they never really happen. So we have lost our confidence. How can we trust you any further? In fact, if you are so determined, well, thank you. Next speaker, Mrs. Te. I'm a TKO resident. I strongly object to the landfill extension plan. We need to support reduction at waste, and we need to support recycling industry. The last term of government said that the TKO landfill will be exhausted in 2014. So we had this legitimate expectation that the TKO landfill will be closed down. In 2014, it will become part of our history. The current term of government has the obligation to realize such undertaking. Otherwise, there will be deeper grievance among the people. Population in TKO has been increasing rapidly among the 3 landfills. The one in TKO is closest to residential dwellings, affecting 500,000 of people and their health. Whitmore Road is anything but green. The name of the road is very ironic. Thousands of garbage vehicles use this road. There is a lot of dust, leakage of sewage. There is sludge, and PM 2.5 exceeded the standards. Suspended particulates and bad odor is disturbing us every day. There are many trips made by such vehicles causing noise problems. It seems that the government has been blind and deaf. You are sacrificing our health. When it comes to waste management, everyone in Hong Kong should shoulder the responsibility, and different districts should share the liability. TKO residents have been suffering from bad odor and pollution for many years. The government is responsible for dealing with this problem in a fair and just manner. We are moving towards the end of the public hearing. I'm sure you have heard plenty of objections from residents. I hope that you will love the people like they are your children and worry about what we are worried about and listen to our requests. We don't want compensation. I hope the government will not become the people's enemy. I now urge all LegCo members to vote against this landfill extension plan for TKO landfill. Next, Mr. Christopher Law.
I've already sent in my submission, but I'll just say a few words here. I think in Hong Kong, every one of us generates a lot of waste. Every construction site also generates a lot of waste. Now, before we could reduce waste at source, before there is effective recycling of waste, then we try to convince Cheung and other districts to tell them we are shuffling you all our waste. Now, I don't think we can convince them. We can't tell them to sacrifice themselves for the bigger good of the community. Incineration, well, at first it was thought that if it's put in a remote island where no one lives there, then nobody would oppose it. But it turns out the outcome is preposterous. That you're going to spend $18 billion and move the facilities to somewhere far away, and we don't know how much it will cost every year for operation. And then you have a design, build, and operate approach because you press for time. So that's why it's not cheap. It's $18 billion. It's very expensive. And then you also have to spend on reclamation, and it would take a few more years. But at the same time, we say that it's a matter of urgency. But then still you choose a site that would take a few more years in reclamation. So the whole solution proposal is preposterous. And every day you have to transport 3,000 tons of waste from all over Hong Kong to that site. And then afterwards, the 300 odd tons of ash will have to be sent to other landfills. And after you build the first incinerator, you might build the second and the third one. So Hong Kong is moving farther and farther away from sustainable management of resources and waste. Because you build the first incinerator, you build the second and third incinerator, then you don't see the need for waste reduction at source. Is it true that there are no other possible alternatives? No, that's not the case. There is an action group on integrated waste management. They have put forward a proposal. So we see there are alternatives. But why do we want to proceed with something that has attracted so much opposition, is so unpopular, and that's so expensive? Why don't we spend some time to think carefully? Can we first start with effective waste reduction at source, and then we'll see how we take it further? I think then it will be a lot easier to convince people. But now you're just crying wolf. You're saying that if we do not do the reclamation, if we do not build the incinerator, then we will be seeing litter strewn all over the place. Now, I don't think you can convince people that way. Like Mr. Yong Chi-ming from Cheung Chau Rural Committee. Madam Chair, members, officials, I'm the chairman of the Cheung Chau Rural Committee. I'm speaking on behalf of Cheung Chau residents. Cheung Chau residents are strongly against the incinerator in CHO Chau. Cheung Chau faces CHO Chau directly, and the incinerator is going to emit toxic gases day by day that will affect the health of Cheung Chau residents. In Cheung Chau, we have a large population of elderly and young and children. Now, Cheung Chau is known for its fresh air, good air quality. It's tourist spot. So if air is polluted, of course, the tourism industry would be affected. And also there's a need for reclamation, so it will affect the operations of fishermen and mariculturists in the area. Why must you choose CHO Chau for the incinerator? There are other sites where the building cost would be a lot lower. In CHO Chau, you have to first do reclamation, so the whole construction program would be longer than that for other sites. There are other sites where you could build the incinerator quicker, so it could be commissioned quicker. Now, if incinerators do not affect people's health, why don't you build an incinerator in every district? So every district takes care of its own refuse. Why must you want Cheung Chau residents to put up with the emissions from incineration of waste from all over the territory? The Cheung Chau residents are not being selfish. But then why are Hong Kong people being so generous? They send us all their waste and then they make Cheung Chau residents inhale the toxic gas. If there's a effective waste reduction source, then there would be no need for the incinerator. Thank you. Next, Mr. CHO Chau-ming. Now, we're told that the landfills will soon be exhausted, and it seems that the only solution would be to build a modern incinerator. And it's also said that the emissions would not present a problem. So let's assume that's the case. If that's the case, then site identification should be just about whether a district has sufficient land to build the incinerator. It costs less and it takes sooner. All we need is to maybe provide some sort of traffic supporting measures. That's all. So how come then, when the announcement was made to build the incinerator in CHO Chau, why did you choose CHO Chau? Because it would take 2 years longer and cost more. Why don't you pick a site where it will be 2 years quicker and cost less? It said that the CHO Chau incinerator could generate energy, it could create jobs, and you could also develop tourism there. So it's something so good. Why do we deny other districts of such benefits? You know, Cheung Chau is already doing very well with tourism. Why do you still want to give us the facilities? Is it because the government is flushed with cash? So it would go for an option that's more expensive and that takes longer to build. And you actually going to do reclamation on a small island. It will affect the habitat there. It will affect the fishermen there. The EPD told us that there are such facilities in other countries. People there do not object. They all accept the facilities. So this is an experience we could make reference to. But then they've never told us another point. That is, for these countries, they are all doing a great job in waste separation at source. So they don't tell us the experience of what other countries did in waste separation. So instead, you're just telling us how good incineration is. Why don't you focus instead on waste separation at source? Now, can the government also tell us, apart from CHO Chau, where will there be the second or third incinerator and where will they be? And another question just sprang to mind. There's objection to landfills. What about building incinerators at the landfills? I think that would solve a lot of problems because the waste is already in landfill. So can you not build incinerators there? Let's see if the people will oppose it. Thank you. Mr. Mankit, I'm a Cheung Chau resident. I'm against the CHO Chau incinerator. There are 3 reasons. First one, CHO Chau is close to Cheung Chau. So when waste is combusted, it would generate a large volume of emissions, and that will certainly affect Cheung Chau residents in the long term. So there would be long-term impact on our health. It will affect us generations to generations. Now, CHO Chau is far away from the urban district, so you have to use both vehicles and vessels to transport waste to CHO Chau for combustion or incineration. And of course, vessels cause pollution and emissions that will further aggravate the air quality. It's not very good to the environment. The third reason. Now, there's been a lot of reclamation in Hong Kong. We have very few shorelines left. To the southwest of Hong Kong, CHO Chau, Lantau Island, South Dai, Ah Chow, these are places where we still have the shorelines. But if we do more reclamation here, then our children are not, and our future generations aren't going to see the original shoreline. And these waters are where the local Cheung Chau fishermen make a living. This is a fishing ground for us Cheung Chau fishermen. There are precious maritime resources here. So for these reasons, Cheung Chau residents are steadfastly against building an incinerator in CHO Chau. I believe Lantau Island South residents oppose the incinerator for similar reasons.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I urge the Environment Bureau not to build one of the world's largest incinerators at CHO Chau for 6 reasons. First, this is an oversimplified quick fix for the complexities of waste management. With a super incinerator, there will be no incentive to do anything other than burn. Hong Kong will continue its excessive use of resources, per capita way above Seoul or Tokyo, for instance. International best practice, as we know, is for waste separation at source and recycling wherever possible. Moreover, the decision-making which led to the choice of an area of outstanding natural beauty for the incinerator appears to have been for narrow, partisan and politically convenient reasons. Hong Kong deserves better governance than this. Second, the unanswered health concerns. The EB has effectively admitted the dangers of emissions from the proposed incinerator by refusing to consider one of the other, less ecologically sensitive sites evaluated by an external consultant in 2007. If the proposed incinerator is so safe, why put it in an area of low population where street protests are conveniently unlikely? And why does the chimney have to be so high that it will permanently ruin some of Hong Kong's best views? Moving great incineration only achieves a 70% reduction in the amount of waste burned. The remainder includes poisonous dioxins pushed into the atmosphere and highly toxic ash residue. Why does the EB continue to resist newer technologies which are gaining acceptance globally? Third, how much will this really cost? The current estimate is for 18 billion Hong Kong dollars, but this is increased by some 20% on the 2011 estimate. How can we know what the final cost will be, and are there proper checks and balances in place? Fourth, what price the visual environment? An incinerator at CHO Chau will destroy a priceless landscape for future generations and earn Hong Kong only ridicule in the world of environmental conservation. Fifth, please consider Lantau's and Cheung Chau's role in diversifying Hong Kong's economy. As the urban population grows, it's more important than ever to have accessible open spaces for low-cost activity-based leisure, such as hiking, swimming and camping. And the Hong Kong economy needs to diversify. Ecotourism would be a good way to do this, particularly after the opening of the Zhuhai Bridge. But with the visual landscape of South Lantau and Cheung Chau ruined, and with health questions hanging in people's mind, this opportunity will be squandered. The planned incinerator will destroy the value of investments and property in Lantau and Cheung Chau. Developers might like to take note. And finally, what if the emissions exceed the standards promised, or if waste is imported from elsewhere? The EB has a poor record on environmental protection. Can we trust them to measure the incinerator emissions accurately? If the emissions exceed safety levels, will they decommission it? Given escalating costs and the exceptionally large capacity planned, it will be all too convenient for the EB to import waste from elsewhere to offset costs, from the Pearl River Delta perhaps. But what control would we have over the content of such waste? In conclusion, I submit that we are being asked to take far too much on trust. Instead of a politically convenient one-stop quick fix, we need a properly thought-out solution conforming to international best practice. This is our duty to the future generations of Hong Kong.
The next speaker is Dr. Martin Williams from the Hong Kong Outdoors. Please.
It's over 3 years since I became involved in opposing the CHO Chau incinerator, first because of the location being beautiful and home to wildlife including endangered finless porpoises. But over time I've opposed incineration anywhere in Hong Kong because of the poison emissions, toxic ash, the expense and the sheer wastefulness. There's been considerable disinformation. For instance, the EPD has claimed incineration will destroy all organic pollutants. This is not true. I once asked Elvis Howe, why not put the incinerator in Central, right next to this building? He said no, the air quality objectives would be exceeded. Our environmental officials make no mention of research revealing health issues with modern incinerators, like cancers, premature births, children with stunted growth. Chemicals cleaned from the chimney, including dioxins and heavy metals, will go into the ash. Ideas for dumping this in a landfill island would create a toxic time bomb for future generations. People have suggested alternatives to incineration and expanding landfills. You'll have heard many today. For each, the EPD comes up with supposed failings. Worldwide, there are widespread moves towards zero waste to landfills or incineration. Why not in Hong Kong? What's wrong with us? Plasma arc gasification has almost no emissions, no toxic ash, and can be used to produce jet fuel and mine landfills. You could mine out the landfills at Chung Kwano and places, extract them, use the land. I help with and fully support this plan from the New Territories Concern Group. Air Products has invested over $1 billion in the technology, just completed a major facility in England. Oddly, the Environment Bureau seems more interested in an incinerator with a ski slope that won't even be ready for 3 years. Over a year ago, KS Wong promised me that there would be a discussion of the technology. This has not happened. Food waste treatment is worthwhile too, but the North Lantau plant will supposedly cost an enormous $1.5 billion, about 8 times a similar plant in the UK. I think panel members might ask, where will the excess $1.3 billion go? It does seem the main supporters of the government's plans, including the big crazy bonfire, are those who are benefiting and will benefit financially. With construction costs and landfill extensions and so forth, it will cost an outrageous $40 billion or more. But hopefully, panel members will again reject the government's appalling waste plans. In making your decision, please avoid the scaremongering about waste piling in the streets. It's nonsense. Instead, note that alternative plans can be implemented more quickly, far more cheaply than incinerator plus landfill expansion. With a can-do attitude, with science and wisdom, we can make Hong Kong a role model for waste treatment and environmental protection.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. 下一位係香港水務及環境管理學會李子健先生，唔該。
局長。
Next, Mr. Alfred Lee of the Chartered Institution of Water and Environmental Management Hong Kong. Now, on behalf of the institution, I'm going to analyze the free landfill one incinerator proposal in a scientific manner. Hong Kong is a densely populated area. It's heavily developed, so there's a need for us to have a facility to deal with municipal solid waste. On waste reduction of source and promotion of recycling, the government is moving rather slowly. It's actually disappointing to some degree. On important initiatives and policies like reducing waste generation and waste recycling, the government should do more. Only then could we encourage everyone in Hong Kong to play an active part in the whole process. On landfills and incinerators, in principle, the institution is not against these options, but we don't want them just to be about chanting slogans. For incinerators in particular, the government must observe the highest emission standards. These standards should be even higher than the current Euro standards. Only then could you address the concern of the communities in the vicinity. And only then can we see how determined the government is. Now, even if a technology is well established, is efficient, in terms of operation and emissions, if there are no supporting measures, that will not be very effective. So in terms of developing technology and promotion, the government should take the dual-tracked approach. You can't just say that, oh, it's not going to cause any harm to residents. Don't just give out wrong messages to the people. On incinerators, they cause concern to local residents. Perhaps you could do some public education across the territory, because if you don't put it here, you still have to put it somewhere else. must we allow this not in my backyard mentality to stay in every district? Now, we're still just talking about it. There is not concrete action time frame. You know, our municipal waste has reached such an extent that is almost unbearable. So we want the government to give us a more transparent and clear analysis so that as professionals we could conduct further discussions with the government. Thank you.
Next, Ms. LEE Kwai-chun. Thank you, Chairman, members and government officials. Before allaying residents' worries, the mega incinerator should not be built. I think residents are most worried about emittance from the incinerator and the possible health hazard. The administration said a number of times that incinerators nowadays are very advanced. The emittant will not affect human health. However, residents have a lot of worries. Why? Because the government has not promised to sort waste at source. Can the government offer more information on the composition or content of the emittant and some medical reports? Can there be an undertaking that the exhaust fume from the incinerator would not affect health? The government has the responsibility to give an account to residents. Otherwise, residents' concerns won't be allayed. If no undertaking can be offered to residents, how can residents support the government in building this mega incinerator? I would like to ask officials and members to double think. Thank you. Next, Mr. Tom Hope.
Focus on, sorry, I'll take this off. I would like to focus on food waste, and the proposals of the Environment Bureau published last month, where they aim by 2022 to separate out 40% of food waste, which would be treated by 4 OWTF centres. So that's taking 8 years to get just 40% separation, so that 60% would then have to go to either incinerator or landfill. I know people who were in Taiwan when waste separation was implemented. It took 1 year. I don't understand why. Well, I think it's clear that Hong Kong has, if the political will is there, the same could be achieved. Perhaps the Environment Bureau will say, where will we put the food waste once it's separated? The Environment Advisory Panel already has a proposal from the NGO Clear the Air, which demonstrates that this food waste could be processed very easily through the existing sewage treatment facilities in Hong Kong. Why is the political will not there? I've talked to consultants who understand what's really happening on the ground in Hong Kong, and as I understand it, the Environment Bureau perhaps doesn't have the power to implement effective territory-wide policies immediately. They can't secure the mandatory legislation or the cross-departmental collaboration required. But clearly, economic services at the right level could push through the necessary legislation and funding to implement this within a year. It would be to everyone's benefit. It would create lots of jobs, suitable especially for those who are currently living in poverty within Hong Kong. If we do this, we halve the waste going to landfill. We double the life of the existing landfill. This will allow enough time for alternative technologies to be trialled, such as gasification, which do not require landfill extension and can allow landfill to be reclaimed over time. In this way, Hong Kong can lead the way within the Pearl River Delta for a superior solution for waste management. Shenzhen has already petitioned against landfill extension, but they're ramping up their incinerator program. We are all in this together, not just in Hong Kong, but in the Pearl River Delta generally. Hong Kong people are pragmatic and resourceful with a wonderful capacity to do things quickly. See how the octopus card came into effect here. People could see it made sense and they used it. If you, LegCo, vote against the Environment Bureau's proposals now, you will force the issue to be dealt with at an appropriate higher level to put Hong Kong truly on track for a zero-waste future, where our waste is not wasted and we breathe more freely.
Next, Ms. Chiu, Chairman, Secretary, members. I am a resident in Tuen Mun. I know really nothing. I only know that I have to take good care of family members' health. I want to offer my children a good environment. However, recently, there's government API talking about incinerator and landfills. Everybody knows that when we inhale smoke from incinerator, the feeling is not good. So I want to ask the Secretary, can you guarantee that the air will not damage people's health? Homemakers in Tuen Mun have hard time. Next to our residences is landfill. And now you're saying that the landfill is not big enough, it has to be expanded. I go to the wet market to buy food every day. And whenever the weather is warmer, Secretary, do you know that the Scotch tapes have a lot of flies being stuck on them? So I must say that with the landfill, you will be horrified when you see all those flies in the market. I still have some more points to make, sorry. Now, there are some organizations talking about plasma gasification. I don't know much about it, but now we have got plasma TV sets at home. Secretary, I don't think you will be using those backward TV set. The Financial Secretary always says that we should save costs, we should save money. Then why can't the government think of the less expensive, more practical suggestions? Now you are putting forth this proposal. Why is that so? That's all. Thank you. Thank you. Next, Mr. Simon Lau from Rang Study Center. Thank you, Chairman. I am a Cheung Chau resident. I object to the building of incinerator in CHO Chau. I live in Cheung Chau. I don't want Cheung Chau to be damaged. The government plans to build an incinerator in CHO Chau. This will cause disturbance to Cheung Chau residents' lives. The CHO Chau incinerator is going to be one of the biggest incinerators in the world. Every day, it treats 3,000 metric tons of waste, but then the waste is not being segregated at source, and the waste is incinerated together. A lot of pollutants will be emitted from the chimney, and they will become particulates, suspended particulates, which will cause serious damage to our health. In other countries, they first separate the waste before incinerating the waste. Now, the planned incinerator will be equipped with a lot of air control systems, but then the toxic gas won't be filtered out. There will be ash and flying dust from the flying ash from the incinerator, which contains a lot of toxins. This incinerator will operate around the clock, and toxic gases will be emitted continuously. So I think that the incinerator is a source of pollution. Cheung Chau is only 3 miles away from CHO Chau. If there is southwesterly wind, the pollutants can reach Cheung Chau in 10 minutes. The pollutants cannot be diluted within a short period of time, and they will cause serious impact to our health. When the waste is not separated or sorted at incinerator, pollution cost is most serious. If the incinerator is built, Cheung Chau's economy will be seriously affected. Property price will come down. All businesses will see a downturn. Now, the natural environment of Cheung Chau is very good. It is scenic. It is a good place for Hong Kong people to spend their holidays. In Cheung Chau, we often hear tourists' laughter. We know that they are happy, they are enjoying themselves. If the incinerator damages Cheung Chau, it is really unwise. Now, I would like to ask you, thank you, Mr. Lau. Next, Mrs. Sin. Mrs. Sin, please. Thank you, Chairman. Today, actually, I am sick because I have the opportunity to express views on behalf of 500,000 Cheung Kwan O residents. If I don't come, I cannot face up to them. This is the third time I am speaking in LegCo. Every time, over 100 deputations spoke. Every deputation has 3 minutes to speak. I think many points have been made. Mr. Wong, you have heard a lot. Mr. Wong, today, what else do you expect to hear? I can tell you, no matter how many public hearings are you going to conduct, our voice won't change. Please stop the close the Cheung Kwan O landfill as soon as possible. The reason is simple. We're talking about wrongful town planning, which is unacceptable. We are only talking about an 800-meter distance, so we can't accept the landfill. The eagle flies from the landfill and then to our residences, bringing a lot of bacteria. This is unacceptable. We don't want the Whampoa Road to be filled with flying dust, and school children have to fight for road space with big waste collection vehicles. This is very dangerous. How can parents accept that? If I continue, I'm sure I can't exhaust the items in a few days and nights. I'm not talking about what we have lost. In fact, our health is directly affected. Our lives are being eroded. Not only our generation is affected, but our next generation and our next generation as well. The impact is huge and very deep. Mr. Wong, how can you bear this responsibility? Over the past years, Cheung Kwan O residents took to the street many times. We are making a very reasonable request, but then we are unreasonably and unscrupulously dealt with. The funding for expansion of the landfill is being applied for with other applications. Now, you are the head of a bureau. Is this the right way to work? I want to ask you, how can you face up to the public? If the landfill is to be expanded, what kind of work will you do to remedy the situation? I'm not bargaining with you. This is something that you ought to do well, but you haven't discharged your responsibility. Recently, the weather has turned warmer. The odor comes again from the landfill. This is only one simple thing. Now you want to expand the landfill. Thank you, Mrs. Sin. Next, Mr. Wong Pak Ling from Cheung Chau Dawson Street, Kai Fong Association. Thank you. I am an indigenous resident in Cheung Chau. I have 4 points against the building of CHO Chau incinerator. First, about the throughput volume. The incinerator is going to be based on the Japanese technology, but comparing with the Japanese throughput, we're going to be much bigger. Japan has a few decades of experience, and the throughput is 5 times less than the CHO Chau throughput. Now, this is the first time we are operating this huge technology. Is this reasonable? Secondly, in terms of waste reduction at source, according to the Environment Bureau, because there are many incinerators in Japan, and so in each district, the incinerator will only burn waste from that particular district. And as a result, they are all very disciplined to reduce waste, to make sure that the incinerator toxin will not affect their district. Now, the incinerator to be built in CHO Chau is going to be the only incinerator in Hong Kong. Then will this disciplined waste reduction at source be realized in Hong Kong? Number 3, about Taiping Cheung, you may be surprised how that is related to the incinerator. Now, if you consider SARS and air quality and Taiping Cheung, these 3 things are interrelated. In 2003, when there was the SARS outbreak, there were a lot of fatal cases. And in that year, when there was a Taiping Cheung parade, many people came to CHO Chau to participate in that parade, and not one of them wore a mask. After that, Taiping Cheung is designated as an intangible cultural heritage. Now, do we really want to destroy the rear garden of Hong Kong, being CHO Chau, and build the incinerator? My last point is, well, I know Cheung, he said CHO Chau is away from Hong Kong by 3.2 kilometers. But then I know some athletes, in 10 minutes we can run 3,000 odd kilometers. So wind will be able to reach CHO Chau in less than 10 minutes. Now, Hong Kong sees a more and more serious division, and we should work together. We're talking about a very expensive incinerator, but then the effects are of doubt. There will be damage to the public, and this incinerator has accentuated class division. So do you really want it? Thank you. Next, Mr. Pang Wah-kun. Thank you, Chairman. I am against the building of incinerator in CHO Chau. In CHO Chau, there are 600 odd big and small fishing vessels. Most of them operate along the coast. In recent years, there has been a lot of reclamation and excavation of mud. As a result, the fishery industry experienced a lot of difficulty. And in the past 10 years, in less than 2 knots around CHO Chau, there is a landfill. And so a lot of threats were caused to the fishermen. They are not able to make enough return, so they have changed business. This is one reason of objection. Number 2, near the coastal area, CHO Chau, Lantau Island and Ah Chow are the main basis of operation of many fishermen. This incinerator will emit hazardous substances, and no matter what direction of the wind is, fishermen's health will be affected. So that's why we object. Number 3, in Hong Kong, after fish trawlers are prohibited, the fish resources around the coastal areas have increased. This is quite obvious. So fishermen have better opportunity of survival. Now, many fishermen have invested more money to improve their fishing vessels for production. But then with the incinerator, a lot of blow will be dealt to the near-coast fishermen. So I hope that the government will listen to fishermen's views. The government has not been listening to the fishery industry all along. Our room for survival has been stifled. In the past, when there are government projects, fishermen's views will be collected. But now about this building of this incinerator, fishermen in CHO Chau have not received government contacts about consultation with us. So I think the government should listen more to fishermen. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pang. Next, Mr. Hui Fai-ching from Cheung Chau Pak Share Kai Fong Association. Thank you, Chairman. We have sent in our written submission. It's also on our website. Members, Secretary, you can read it. Let me clarify. The Cheung Chau Kai Fong Association said that all Cheung Chau residents support the building of the incinerator. They have no view. This is a wrong remark. They only represent themselves. They don't represent all Cheung Chau residents. One person cannot represent all people in Cheung Chau. This is not acceptable. Today we have heard many comments. Secretary, I think things are quite clear already. There are people from the construction industry supporting you, and those objectors are mainly affected residents. Secretary, today there are more than 100 deputations, and you have heard what the affected residents have said. Residents have a lot of worries, and you know clearly what they are requesting. Residents don't trust you because in the past you did not do a good job. You have not lived up to your promises. So how can you ask residents to support you? It is not true to say that we do not trust the government, that we are not cooperating with the government. At least you have to do something. At least you have to convince us that your work is effective. Then we can consider working with you or supporting you. But you have not shown any good results.
And today you want to seek endorsement for the 3+1 proposal. What about the TKO residents? They have been lied to by the EPD for years, and they have nowhere to go to if they want to file a complaint. How can you expect us to trust you? We urge members to see this clearly. This is about people's livelihood. It's not about politics or struggle among different parties. This is about people's lives. If we do this the right way, everyone in Hong Kong will benefit. Any incinerators around the world will release dioxin and other toxic substances. The Euro standard is about reduction of emission. Doesn't mean zero emission. So if there is southwesterlies, people will be affected, not just Cheung Chau, but other places. And what about the rest of the population? It only takes 2 hours for the wind to reach you. If you take in such particulates, your health will be compromised. Sorting of waste has been done around the world. Why don't we do the same? Thank you. I want to thank all of you for attending today's hearing. Today we have heard from 146 participants. Now we understand better how you feel, and that will help us make a better decision. Mr. Wong, do you have any brief response? Thank you for your attendance and expressing your views today. I will ask Ellen to talk about the landfills, and another colleague will talk about the incinerator. First of all, this term of administration has started operating for over a year. We're serious about different plans. Concerning the landfills, we have issued a blueprint, and we are spending more than 10 billion on phasing out old vehicles. So we are seeing the results step by step. But we are covering many different areas: reduction of source, food waste handling, recycling, so on and so forth. We would like to monitor the situation with the community. We are determined. But you need to understand that the mainstream view in the community is in favor of the 3+1 proposal. This is a pressing matter, and that is a fact. We have been discussing the infrastructure for 1 to 2 decades. The extension plan, the incinerators, more than a decade. It is not something we are proposing from scratch. We have to come to a decision somehow. Dr. Ellen Chan? TKO residents said, since the secretary issued a public letter, nothing much has been done. That's not true. We have prepared a detailed report, and Sai Kung District Council set up a dedicated task force to monitor the situation, and they also convened a meeting last month. We provided the report to them. Together with enforcement colleagues, I have explained to District Council members what we have done. We have told TKO residents that PM2.5, there's a lack of information. What is the reason? Actually, we submitted the information to the Sai Kung District Councillors. We also explained clearly the results of measurement of PM2.5 and how does that level compare with the rest of the territory. What has been done by the monitoring team. We included all the charts, the number of visits, duration of visits, the percentage of time when they could smell bad odor, the duration, so on and so forth. We have already explained everything. We're happy to continue to provide information to the Sai Kung District Council. Of course, when it comes to cleaning, can we step up the efforts? We're happy to work with the CEDD and also FHD. The paper is very long. I do have a copy here, and I trust that the Sai Kung District Council can also release the information to you for reference. Mr. Ao, many people talked about the incinerator at CHO Chau, and people are concerned about the location. We have gone through detailed studies beginning from 2002. We started exploring different options. We had a consultative body which is well represented by different sectors. After listening to different groups' views in 07-08, we completed the studies covering 8 to 9 different locations. We thought about somewhere near the landfills or other places. We identified 21 sites for further studies, and then we shortlisted that down to 8 and then further shortened the list to 2 places. After the EIA report was completed, we felt that the artificial island, in terms of ecology and air quality, we feel that is a viable option. If we are to construct the first incinerator, which place will be the best? We considered 3. We looked into 3 elements. First of all, when it comes to waste distribution for Hong Kong, on the strategic level, we must strike a balance so that there will be even distribution of waste. Now, in different districts, towards the north, towards the west, towards the east, we have 3 landfills, and they need to be extended. Secondly, in Tuen Mun, the first incinerating facility is now underway. It will be completed very soon. It is to deal with sludge. And then there are also transshipment center and other treatment facilities. So we feel that the artificial island is a good option. We have also examined the direction of wind affecting Hong Kong. We are talking about the movement from northeast to southwest. And in summer, southwesterlies will affect Cheung Chau. We've done calculation, and the air quality will be up to standard, and there will be no adverse impact on people's health or air quality. If you look at transportation system, the selection of CHO Chau is reasonable because we target places included the island side and also Kowloon areas. Right now, there are 3 vessels are located in Island East, Island West, and Kowloon, going to CHO Chau, and the route is shorter. It is much closer compared to Huaning Bay and Zhengzhou. So that is the third reason. Some participants have talked about the scale. We have taken reference of practices around the world. 3,000 tons is not a lot. We went to Europe recently. In the Netherlands, they have this facility up to latest Euro standard. We're talking about 4,000 tons. 3,000 ton facility is also available in Singapore. Can we do a better job on reducing waste at source before we talk about other options? It's not true. Having this technology of moving grade incinerator, it will not lead to emission of toxic materials. Singapore is similar to Hong Kong, so we can totally meet the Euro standards. And actually, we would like to go beyond that. Concerning NOx, we are going beyond the Euro standards. We are using the latest technology so that NOx can be selectively lowered by another 50%. So it is more stringent by 50% compared to the Euro standards. Thank you, Mr. Au. Today's meeting will end at 6:20. I shall extend it according to actual needs. Mr. Chan, do you have any questions? We will extend the meeting by 10 minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just now, the Secretary, in his response, stressed he has the backing of the community. He also pointed out that many green groups understand the reality and they accept the landfill proposal and the incinerator proposal. After so many months of visiting different districts and attending public hearings, you should feel that, just like what Bernard Chan has said, he is a member of EXCO and also the chairman of Sustainability Development Committee. He understands that such facilities are obnoxious in nature. So he proposed some ideas. Perhaps the government can work harder in lobbying the local residents. Perhaps the government can offer some more recreational facilities, or in terms of the charging scheme to be implemented in the future, perhaps we can provide some concessions to these people. What is your position at the moment? What do you think about the ideas proposed by Mr. Bernard Chan? Mr. Wong? Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Chen. At different occasions, we have already said that if we refer to the European or Japanese or South Korean practices, when they erect incinerating facilities, they can turn waste into heat. Such facilities will take up a lot of land. So they need to better utilize the heat generated. They can combine them with local facilities, especially in colder areas. They can provide warm water pools so as to bring some benefits to the local people and also people who live farther away. So that is the position of the government. For example, the sludge treatment plant in Tuen Mun is following the same thinking. We combine that with a spa facility and it will be commissioned next year for the benefit of members of the public. We continue to be positive. At an earlier session, a resident from Cheung Chau discussed what facilities are more suitable for CHO Chau. At the planning stage, we will talk to our dedicated task force to try our best to meet local demand. And then about the charging scheme, I should say that the government remains open-minded because this is a new system in Hong Kong. Through the panel, earlier we already collected different opinion, and in Q3 this year we're going to submit a report to the Bureau. Many members of the community have made suggestions along the same direction. So we will ask the panel to come to a conclusion for our consideration. Madam Chair, my observation, or by quoting Mr. Bernard Chan, is actually nothing new. We always hear the same thing from the government. They are open-minded, blah, blah, blah. But now we have to consider it. We have to approve the funding. And you would realize that people in Cheung Chau or in other remote islands or in TKO or in Tuen Mun, they don't really know what to do with the information. And they continue to ask us to vote against the funding application. Mr. Hope also said, let's vote it down and then force the government to do something better. So, Secretary, what is the reason behind this observation? Why are people still saying no? Is it because you are not telling them clearly what you want to achieve? Mr. Chan, I think we can communicate further concerning these facilities. For example, the incinerator. We have not set up this facility. Although we have discussed it for so long, people feel that it is perhaps obsolete technology. So it was a very new and unfamiliar concept, and there could be some misleading reports on such facility. But we went to the city center of Copenhagen, the newly erected incinerator, and also it is only 1 kilometer away from the major attraction, the mermaid statue. So it is very close to the residential dwellings. When you get used to it, it is not a problem. And that's why we need to step up communication with the community. Madam Chair, I cannot really imagine how Mr. Wong may bring thousands of residents to Copenhagen with him to look at the facilities. So there is a gap in terms of communication, and it is a serious gap. Just now, Mr. Au also talked about in 2007 and 2008, there was this set of criteria supporting their selection. We have some new members here. 95% of the panel is actually composed of new members. So perhaps Mr. Au, you could provide a copy of the relevant document to the panel. Actually, it's been submitted to LESCO already. We can give you the number. On the 28th of March, we have another public hearing. And by then, there will be further discussion, and we will deal with Mr. Fan's motion. This is the end of today's meeting, and thank you again for your attendance.